My name is Dagmar Schultz. I live in Berlin, Germany, and I have been a feminist for decades. And the question is now on secularism in Germany and the present situation, and whether there have been changes through immigration, through Christian movements.
Is Germany a secular country?
Germany is a secular country. Germany is probably not as could be called a laicist country in the same sense in which France is. They're not. There's not such a strict separation of state and church, because Germany does have a Christian Democratic Party. It does. In that sense, it's not secular. Germany raises church taxes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
it's the state collecting taxes for the church.
For the church.
Right.
For the churches. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Not for all religions. You know? Mm-hmm. That's another aspect of it. You know? So in that sense, it's not secular, but it claims to be secular in the sense that it now, in terms of the issue of Islam and of women wearing the scarf, the argument is that in public institutions the scarf should not be worn. This is not quite the same for students, but for employees. It has been an issue for quite a few years, and has been by states within Germany. There have been different kinds of legal decisions made, but the general tendency is to not permit women to wear the scarf. And there's quite a discussion about that, whether that's correct or not correct. There are quite a few people, especially also on the left, who say everybody should be able to decide how they want to dress, how they want to express their religious or national identity, and others say that the scarf is a political statement, and it's largely imposed on Muslim women to all often, you know, if they voluntarily wear it, it's still because they feel there's a pressure being an immigrant in the country to state their identity. You find many more women wearing scarves in Berlin than in Istanbul, you know. And it is one result of being a minority, being a discriminated minority, and so it's a signal of protest in a way. Yeah. Not for all, but for some.
But you were saying that the left is taking this into consideration in order to support the right to veil. My question is the left not taking action so that the state stops collecting taxes for churches?
Yeah.
Instead of supporting religions in their various aspects?
I know.
Is there such a movement?
Actions against there are fundamentalist Christian movements, which are largely ignored. There's some more attention now on them because there's more discussion on fundamentalism, but it's kind of like with racism, you know, the focus is not on the fundamentalism in your own ranks, but it's on like supporting other groups. You know, I can't compare it with racism exactly, but it's always difficult to look at the problems and in your own groups.
So are you saying that there's no movement to reclaim more secularism? For instance, ask the state to stop collecting taxes for churches. There's no such thing.
Well, there is a movement in terms of the discussion which was raised around the scarf. Yeah. Should religion be expressed in school at all? You know? Should there be religious instruction on a certain religion? And should there be any? I mean, the tendency is now, but that's not just on the left. That's also by state authorities, that if there is no permission for expression of Muslim identification, then there should be no religious identification.
Good.
And there are differences. In Bavaria, it's different from Berlin, for instance. You know? But that they have replaced instruction on religion by what they call ethical. I don't exactly know what term they use, but something
teaching.
like ethical teachings, yeah, which could be a lot of different things. You know, so that that's to be seen as a positive tendency.
Is there a movement in Germany to refuse to pay the part of the taxes that are given to churches by people who say we have no religion?
Well, a lot of people left the church. Like I left it in 1968 when I was visiting Germany. I lived in the States at that time. It was kind of a funny situation. I came to the office and the woman said, "Oh, you're the 12th person today." Because yesterday, Rudi Dutschke, who was the leader of the left, was hit over the head by a man in the church where he gave a speech, you know, with his walking stick. So this morning already 11 people came to leave the church. You know? And
you mean you have to leave officially?
You have to leave officially. I mean, it's not a big thing. You just go and you say, you sign a paper that you don't want to be a member anymore, which then means that you cannot be buried by a minister. You know, no church feels responsible to bury you. You know? And the other thing, which is a pressure point, which should also, there should be a movement, is that you can, as a social worker, for instance, you usually can't get a job in an institution that has a religious affiliation, which are quite a few, you know, like Caritas and a lot of the charity organizations have some kind of religious affiliation. So that's why quite a few people who are in that area of work, since there's a problem in getting work at all, stay in the church. But it's you know, I have colleagues, or had colleagues at the publishing house who were in the church. My partner is still in the church because her mother is, and she doesn't want to hurt her mother by getting out and worry her about how she's going to be buried eventually when her mother is long dead, you know. So it's kind of upsetting to me, you know. I always said, well, you know, we have so little money here to pay as salaries, and you give 3% of your salary for church taxes. You know.
How do you see women being affected by these social movements, including extreme right and fundamentalist movements in Germany?
Well, I mean, there has been quite an issue around young Turkish women being executed, basically, you know.
Yeah.
Like a young woman being killed by her brothers because she put on some makeup and had a meeting with her boyfriend, you know. And so that has become quite an issue. That there has been a lot of, like there's a Turkish lawyer in Berlin who had to give up her practice because she was threatened so much because she dealt with these issues, or for instance also with sexual abuse in immigrant families. I did an event on that, organized an event with a panel from different immigrant groups, women from different immigrant groups, and it was quite heartbreaking, you know, to hear what's going on. That's totally hushed, you know. And she engaged in public in that issue, and she had to close her practice, you know, because she felt so threatened. And so that's been something where there is a very strong statement now that has to be stopped in whatever way is possible. And in terms of, I found it interesting what you said yesterday, how, you know, one reinforces the other, how maybe Christians get more engaged in religion because there is this whole discussion on religion because Muslims claim claim the right to practice in all kinds of ways. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to look. I mean, at the moment, my impression is that there are quite a few young people who are still, like when the Pope came to Cologne, there were thousands, and the church kind of cleverly uses that because they make it very, with pop music and make it a very exciting event. So there are. Then I had a woman whose sister went into one of these free churches. I don't know what you call them.
Evangelists,
which are close to sects,
Yeah.
And they went to Eastern Europe, to somewhere in, I don't know, Kazakhstan or what, to do missionary work, basically, And she told me her sister had become such a pleasant person. She herself was against it, but her sister was just really happy and really engaged, and so there's that. I don't know how strong that is, I think that those organizations probably can make some use of that general discussion.
Yeah. Recently there has been the setting up of a new organization in Germany, which is called the Ex-Muslims. Yeah. Now, is this, in your views, a hope for a demand for more secularism in Germany? Are they paving the way for others to follow and claim the right that they shouldn't be identified by religion unless they declare themselves believers and not just by virtue of birth?
Yeah.
Is there a hope that this would fuel into a movement, in your views?
Well, that movement would have to become quite public, to have that kind of effect or be in the media. And then I think it could get people to think about it.
Like a movement of ex-Christians?
Yeah, of ex-Christians,
Or ex-Jews?
The first step is what we did among women. A friend who is married to a minister, she wrote an article in one of our books about how Christianity is infused in our daily life, in our language, and everything, which is not conscious to women, to feminists either. It's always the tendency to look at the women with scarves walking behind their husbands and how, how reactionary that is and how those women are oppressed, and not to look at women don't perceive themselves as Christians. They just think, well, I'm even if I'm in the church, I'm not going to church. I have nothing to do with the church. But so she showed how often we use the word God and the word all kinds of language that is Christian. And if you read a newspaper, it's full of innuendos which have to do with Christian tradition. And that has to become conscious first, because those people who don't consider themselves believers think religion doesn't play a role in their lives. And then when they hear about Muslims wanting to build mosques, that feels to them like a very strong expression of religion. And there's a lot of fighting about that now in Berlin, for instance. Muslims want to build a mosque in an area which has which was East Berlin, and I shouldn't say that because of that it's reactionary, but that particular area has politically reactionary populace, and there's a lot of opposition to that mosque being built, and the state defends now the Muslim community to have the right to have their religious institutions. So, consciousness on Christianity needs to be reinforced to even take that before there will be a step to reject it.
Certainly among feminists too.
Yeah.
Okay, is there something that we haven't touched upon that you would like to add?
Well, one thing, maybe back to the scarf, like back in the 80s when it first became an issue, when the teacher was kicked out for a job in a childcare center, the director of that program, a man, argued, well, we are a pro-woman, he didn't say feminist, but institution, and this is a setback for women's rights. So the left, of course, argued then. Well, here you can see how somebody uses suddenly feminism, who has never made an attempt before to do something particular for girls, just to oppose the scarf, And that again got the left to support the women wearing the scarf. So there's that kind
regardless of the political meaning of the scarf. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one thing I would like to add is that it's very interesting to me, myself, that I reacted to your first question, is Germany a secular country, with yes, and then had to come to the conclusion that it's not, because it's raising church taxes and because of all the other things I talked about later. And there's much more, of course, that one could find. To what extent Christianity and the churches are suffusing society and all aspects of its institutions, so that actually it is not a secular country. So I'm saying this in retrospect, in terms of an interesting comment on my own perception. Well, this just shows to what extent I am. My wishful thinking is that it's a secular state, and I take on also the expression of the state that it is secular when it actually isn't. And it's very important that we take a closer look before we come to those kinds of conclusions.
Do you think we need more secularism?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, it's worldwide. In the United States, it has to feel what's happening there. Was the leader of the country considering himself sent by God, and 17% of the electorate being fundamentalists who go to vote also. And then of course they have an influence on groups in Europe and Germany. Fundamentalist groups feel very much strengthened by those movements.
And as a feminist, do you think women could benefit, and how would they benefit from secularism?
Yeah, because secularism is the precondition for women's self-determination. Because in religion, almost all religions, women are assigned inferior roles.